So, welcome once again. My name is David Hayden Menendez, and I am the Executive Director of Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light. We are a statewide organization, an affiliate of Interfaith Power and Light, which is a national organization of 46 affiliates across the country. We take climate change, climate justice in particular, to be a moral and ethical issue that congregations and individuals of faith and conscience must address urgently and today. And obviously, one of the major components, one of the major ways in which we believe that we can address climate justice is through solar, through renewables, through green, clean energy. And I'm so happy to have our four speakers here tonight, who I will introduce shortly. Other than the talks that we will be getting tonight, I also just wanted to make the announcements that we have an ongoing policy call, which this month will be taking place likely on the 23rd. It may get pushed back to the 30th, but you would find an announcement about that. That will be talking particularly about the reconciliation bill, about Reggie, and about other things that are going on in a policy and advocacy level. We have also instituted a monthly letter writing session where it will introduce to you a topic that you can then write to your legislators about. We are doing that in collaboration with the Jewish Earth Alliance every single month. We have quite a lot in regards to creation care, which is what we call our most direct hands-on instantiation of climate justice, where we, especially this year, planted 10,000 trees across Pennsylvania already and are planting a few thousand more. In Pittsburgh, we're doing blueberry bushes, and in Philadelphia, we try to do our best not only to clean up, but also to add to the urban tree canopy to prevent or mitigate heat sinks and other harmful effects of climate change. So, in addition to all of that, obviously, we have our regular communications, newsletters, broadsheets, things that we call sips of sustenance, all these listservs that you can sign up for, as well as our structure for PA IPL in particular is chapter-based. So we have a Philadelphia, a mainline, a Pittsburgh chapter, somewhat of a Scranton chapter, and then a Harrisburg chapter. And soon we will also have a regular quarterly meeting for our Central Pennsylvania chapter, which is actually where I live. So if anybody is interested in getting involved in their local chapters, each one of those chapters pursue climate justice and their work with PA IPL on their own terms, making sure that it's applicable to their region and done in the way that compensates for their capacity and for their interests, whether it's directly advocating for something with local government or it's out planting trees and community gardens, combating food disparities and things of the sort. So we're always happy to have more people on board. So if anybody is not already actively involved in PAIPL, we would love to have that conversation. So all of you are here not to necessarily hear from me, though I would be happy to answer any questions. You are here to hear from our wonderful panel of four speakers tonight. So I'll probably introduce all four of them now so as to get that out of the way, and then we'll run down through each of their presentations and then save the main Q&A for the last so that we can make sure that we get through everybody's presentations without cramming in the last person. So our first speaker is Dr. Joy Baxter of the Clean Energy Co-op. She is so knowledgeable about solar power and solar financing options for nonprofits in Pennsylvania, and she goes around and educates houses of worship who want to go solar about how to go solar. She is the chair of the Southeast PA chapter of the Clean Energy Co-op, which develops renewable energy installations through local community investments. Honestly, I've heard her speak on more than one occasion now, and people like her and Henry, who have also heard speak in the past, they have the knowledge that I often come up slightly lacking when people ask me very specific questions about the finances of solar. So that is why literally I designed this month's session, because I want you to trust them and their knowledge base far more than mine, which I just don't have those answers. Our going in order, our next speaker will be John Coma, who is the VP of Business Development at Enerlogics. John is a seasoned account management and business development executive with extensive experience in energy services. John has been instrumental in leading the account management activities under First Energy's energy efficiency and demand response programs. Prior to Enerlogics, John, as Director of Business Development at Energy Connect, Inc., a demand response curtailment service provider. Before that, he was a project developer and account executive at energy savings performance firms such as Amerisco, Green Tech Energy, and Evensis. I'm probably butchering that company's name, but you don't work there anymore, so. Next, we have Greg Winks, who is the co-founder and partner of Soulbridge Energy Advisors. Greg began his career in the solar industry in 2011, working with solar developer Community Energy. He has also worked as a consultant in several areas of the industry, most recently with Tesla. In 2017, Greg co-founded Soulbridge Energy Advisors in an effort to change the paradigm in the local solar marketplace. His many endeavors to promote the growth of solar in Western PA include serving as treasurer and vice president of the advocacy organization Solar Unified Network of Western Pennsylvania. And then lastly, but definitely not least, Henry Mckay, the PA Program Director for Solar United Neighbors. Henry's passion is to build a movement of empowered and solar-powered advocates across Pennsylvania to fight for a cleaner and fairer energy system. Through earlier positions at the Institute for Sustainable Communities and the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, he has spent the better part of a decade working to make American communities more sustainable, more resilient, and more equitable by supporting local leaders and elevating good ideas. As you can see, the combination of these speakers bring quite a wide array of expertise with them. Each of their companies, each of their nonprofits come at things from a different angle. I think in combination, they will give us a fantastic overview of the ways in which we can actually do solar, right? Because as much as I want solar, as much as my parents already have solar, there are always outstanding questions that get asked, and these are the four people that I know one of them can definitely answer your questions. So without further ado, please, Dr. Joy Baxter.
Thank you. So you've already covered this, David, about why a lot of us want to do ACT to install solar, but just my little take on things as members of communities of faith or as communities of faith, we are committed to helping people in need. And climate change is a threat multiplier. The need is going to be going up over time. So we need to act now to reduce climate change. And we can think of this as preventative maintenance for our world, at least at this point. We kind of missed out before. But one of the solutions is rooftop solar. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. It has been identified as the number 10 solution to reduce global warming, and therefore a good one. So for those who might not quite understand how solar works, for rooftop solar and for mainly rooftop solar, you would have the solar panels on your roof. They are direct current, so it goes through an inverter to make it alternating current, and it can directly feed your appliances or other things in the building. Now, sometimes it's going to be producing electricity when you're not going to be using it. And most of the time, solar systems are set up to be grid connected. So when it's not, when you're not using everything, it pushes out to the grid. And when it's nighttime, it draws from the grid. And the way this works with billing is through net metering. So the unused electricity is credited. You kind of have like what you went into your meter and what went out, and you get the net of that. And it can roll over from month to month. So that's kind of like the general system of how solar works. The benefits of going solar are, again, to fight global warming and reduce pollution. It's also a good return on investment for residential properties and some commercial. For residential, you get higher property values. Zillow estimates this as a 4% increase. And one of the really neat things about solar is there's no routine maintenance, as you might think of other systems in your in a building that need a lot of routine maintenance. Solar does not. So how do you find out if your home or your house of worship is suitable for solar? The easiest way to do this is just to call a solar installer and find out. But if you want to get a good idea, first you want to have a good roof that's facing towards the sun. So south facing, unshaded. It could also be a flat roof. And you want to have at least 20 years in your lifetime of that roof, because solar systems last for 30 plus years. Most are guaranteed for 25. So a way to check to see if your roof has good solar potential is by going to Project Sunroof, which is by Google. It's now historical data. So if you had a tree taken down in the last couple of years, you might not get quite accurate information. For example, this is my house. So when I put in my address, see this bright yellow. Yellow is good for solar. So we actually have solar on our front here. What happens if you're not good for rooftop solar? Well, you could buy 100% renewable electricity from makebenproud.com. What's good about this marketplace is that they only have 100% renewable, where the PA switch has everything in between. You could also invest with the Clean Energy Co-op, and I'll talk about that later. And you could also implement other climate solutions, because solar isn't the only solution out there. Now, for residents, there's actually a cost of doing nothing. So if you do nothing and you don't put solar on, after 25 years, you would have paid $30,000 for your electricity. However, if you put on solar today, you will actually come out ahead at year 25. So this is why for residential, it is a great investment. Well, it's a great investment for me. So bear with me as we go through some of the finances, some numbers. So take this system, saying the upfront cost is $25,000. Now, you get the most benefit by paying the money upfront. However, if you don't have a lump sum to put up front, there are other options. But for this situation, I'm just going to say you have the cash up front to put. Where you get money back is from the electricity you do not have to pay for, and also solar renewable energy credits, which we call SRECs. This is highly dependent on this Pennsylvania legislature. Currently, it's around $30. What this would be $30, but it's forecasted to go possibly down to $5 and maybe after 5 years not be there. So it changes the finances a little bit, but we don't really know what's going to happen. So these together is where the yearly money comes from. So that is around $1,500 a year. The other place where residents can get money back is from the income tax credit, which is now 26% of the installed cost. So this together makes a break-even time of 11 years and the income after 25 years of $25,000. Now, if we go on to commercial, I'm saying the same size system. What is different here is two things. One is the amount that you're going to get back for the electricity, or you wouldn't have to pay for electricity. Residential electricity and commercial electricity are billed differently. Residential is all on usage. Commercial is only half on usage and half on peak demand. What that means is for solar, most of what you can get back or not have to pay for is based on your usage. So it's about half of what you can get for residential. So that's one change. The other change is for commercial, there's an additional tax benefit you can take, which is depreciation. So, but combined, even though the tax benefit is more, the break-even time is longer and the income isn't quite as big at year 25. Now, when we go to nonprofit, it's the same deal with the electricity rates. However, the nonprofits cannot take the tax benefits because they don't pay taxes. So what this does is it makes the finances not as good. So then the break-even time is 29 years, and which means you're underwater at year 25. So the reason we're all here is how do we make this work for nonprofits? One of the things that Solar United Neighbors does is they look at this upfront cost, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Henry, but that's what I take. So they look at this upfront cost and how can they lower this upfront cost through group buying, okay? The Clean Energy Co-op and Enterologics are developers. So we can offer a zero amount down for a solar system. And also both of us can utilize third-party ownership. So what that means is instead of the nonprofit owning the solar system, a third party such as the Clean Energy Co-op or Enterologics owns the solar system. And since we're not nonprofit, we can get the tax benefit. It's still on the nonprofit roof, but because by utilizing this third-party ownership, some of this tax benefit that is lost can be realized. And then Soulbridge, the way I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is a navigation of all of this and consulting. I will not go through all of this. This is my list of the options, the financing options for nonprofits, and we can make sure you get a copy of it. How I have this organized is from the most expensive to from the most expensive to the least expensive, and surprisingly or unsurprisingly, it's also the easiest to the hardest or most complicated. So if you just bought, if as a nonprofit, you just bought the system with a loan, that's going to be fairly easy, but that's the most expensive. There's another organization called Collective Sun, which you still have to pay up front, but they give you, their third-party ownership is fairly easy, but you don't get as much benefit from it. Oops, sorry. I have the word P, or the acronym PPA here. That stands for Power Purchase Agreement. Essentially, instead of paying by usage your electricity to the electricity company, you're going to pay the third party what your solar produces, what benefit you're getting from it. So it's like another monthly payment. Okay, instead of going to your utility, it will be going to the third party ownership. Okay, so the Clean Energy Co-op can offer zero money down and have a fixed utility price per kilowatt. We also can work and do a loan for an organization if it's in combination with a grant. That has worked before. And then, not talking as the Clean Energy Co-op, there's the most beneficial to a nonprofit, but also the most complicated is setting up your own private LLC. And I will briefly talk on that at my final slide. It is a little bit more complicated. So people who are interested, I can talk further in another conversation. One thing to note is everything below here are third-party ownership to realize the tax benefits. That's why all of this is happening, is so we can get the finances to be better off. So what is the Clean Energy Co-op? So I'm really excited about the Clean Energy Co-op because first of all, it's developing renewable energy. So far, just solar, but it's doing it with local money. So everybody here, if you're in Pennsylvania, is welcome to join the Clean Energy Co-op. Basically, we put our money in to when we have a project, and then the project gets developed, and then we get dividends back. And these are 4 projects that have happened. We only have 2 development areas right now in Northeast Pennsylvania and Wayne County, which is where all of these projects have been happening. And just this year, we started a new development area in Greater Philadelphia. We are looking for projects. We would love to partner with an organization to make solar happen for them. The types of organizations we work with are houses of worship, municipalities, healthcare, childcare, low-income housing, theaters, agriculture, firehouses, and other co-ops.
Sonia had a little boy.
So why would you develop with a Clean Energy Co-op versus someone else? First, it has a zero down option. And also we can make small projects possible. One of the reasons is we don't have any employees. We're all volunteers. And so we can keep our costs down that way. We can individualize financing for hosts with these power purchase agreements where you pay for the electricity that's produced by the solar system or through loans. And we use local investments. So how does this happen? So co-op members can invest in the projects versus via purchasing the preferred shares. In return, they get a modest return. So this is kind of like socially responsible investing. So we love not only to work with people here, but also to have you guys join the co-op. We have the societal and local community benefits because we are essentially neighbors helping neighbors. You can see what you've done with your money. Of course, environmental and benefits, and you get some modest financial benefits. Now, I'm just going to briefly touch on the Person Llc. So this is a slide from a church near me in Havertown that they got their solar all up and running, and they did it with a private LLC. The key for a Person LLC is to be able to get the tax benefits, but still remain within all the rules for the SEC. And the easiest way to do this is to have one person be the sole proprietor. And in this case, they didn't have all the capital on hand. So what they did is they just set up private loans with other people in the congregation. So they weren't part of the LLC, but they set up private loans in order to gain the capital. They were able to utilize the tax benefits directly into their private tax work, and then they had a PPA with the church. So they're anticipating, and they're taking not that much of a benefit. I think they decided on taking a 2% over 10 years as a benefit for essentially loaning the money to the church. So it's a small benefit, but with their money, they're able to put the solar in, utilize the tax benefits, and get it going. So the complicated thing about this is you have to have somebody who wants to do this. If you don't have somebody who wants to do this, this is not going anywhere. And then the person here would be happy to share information as far as contracts and all those things. So just contact me if you want to go this route. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Joy. So next we have John Coma. You'll see the contrast we were talking about before many of you got on between the Clean Energy Co-op, which, as Joy said, he's local, he's locally sourced, and he's on a smaller individual scale for each project, as opposed to Enerlogics, which is really seeking slightly larger kind of kilowatts in their projects in the developments. I will also say that I know there's a lot going on in the chat I keep seeing pop up, but we will definitely get back to questions and everything else that's being said to make sure that we don't leave anything unsaid. So without further ado, John, please.
Okay, I'm going to try to share this. That work?
Yep, all good.
All right, I'm going to just flip through these because Joy helped me out here, making this easy for me. A little bit who we are. Yes, we do solar and energy storage development, but like Kathy said prior to, and this is how I've worked with her in the past, we did energy efficiency programs and also demand response programs. Some of that does tie into solar with, you'll see moving forward, there's some opportunity to store some of that energy in batteries potentially as well. So we have some projects we've done in Ohio. I'm going to show you some pictures just so you can get an idea. We're certainly looking at things a little bit larger. We'd certainly try to help you do what we can, but we're working mostly through PPAs. So third-party financing, it's a little bit more challenging to get those rates down. This is a a project we did on a landfill outside of Cleveland. It's 4 megawatts, pretty decent sized project. But we also, we get down into some smaller ones in some of these with cities and universities and schools and rooftop combination grounds. I'll show you. We already went through this. Okay, on the one thing with the when we were looking at, Joy had her diagram up there with the power going back into the grid. Instead of doing that, you can also put in batteries, so you could store energy in batteries for later, or as backup generation, or if you get into some large loads and you're a sophisticated buyer in energy, I mean, you start to shave your demand. This is commercial type stuff, so this isn't really residential, but you start to save some money and you have a lot of benefits in how you manage your bill. That's, solar's only good during the day. I mean, so what do you do at night? Well, if you have that battery storage, you store it during the day, you may produce more than you're going to use during the day. So it is something to look at. It does cost money, does make the project more expensive, but again, all these things need to be looked at from a financial standpoint. Having extra storage and the ability to get into some microgrid applications is also a benefit of tying a battery with the solar. Like I said, we look at larger projects. We're probably in this, typical project size of, 500 kW and up. I think Joy and I were talking beforehand. We have projects that are combinations of maybe 100 kW, multiple sites that add up and get up to a little bit higher. And what that does is helps these project costs come down, which in turn then helps this PPA rate come down. So I'll touch on that here a little bit. These are just some examples of some of the installations we've done: rooftop, different roof styles. One of the other things too, there's some ground mount for you too, and I'll touch on this later, but if you haven't had a roof done and you need to do a roof, you can also roll that into the package, and there is some financial advantages to that as well when you're looking at it from a whole system standpoint. I think you already touched on this as well. Anything over 500 kW needs approval from the PUC. From what we hear, they're really backed up. So things aren't moving real quick. There are the investment tax credits. I know someone had questions in chat. That is still in existence. End of 2022, 26%, 22% at the end of 2023. But I think there's legislation, they're talking about extending this. And so potentially moving forward, there'll be more. It'll be more in that range than it is going down to 10%. Again, these are things that are only important if you're looking as a nonprofit to go with a PPA, with a power purchase agreement. So that's my focus today. That was all I wanted to talk about. And just to tell you the advantages of that is you're not going to pay for it. So all you're doing is either you're giving your roof up or some property up or whatever, and you're going to be the off taker of the energy. You don't maintain the panels if they don't produce like they're supposed to produce. If there's something wrong, there's something out, maintenance, any of that, we take care of it. They need cleaned, all those things we take care of. Like I said, all we do is we need a place to put the stuff, and we need to put it close to where it's going to be used. Like I said, the roof, you can combine that with the solar and put it into a financial package. There is some if you have combined locations, if you have a group of people, larger installations, when you're within a 2-mile radius, you can all have from one array draw off that single array. It's just something to think about. But I mean, for nonprofits, the biggest thing is, in order to take care of that, take advantage of that tax savings, you really need to either have someone that's a co-op or someone like us that utilizes third-party financing so that the investors are able to take that tax credit. Now, I know there are also some questions in there about whether individuals can get involved. I mean, obviously Joy has a model. We have a model we use. Some companies that are nonprofit want to get involved. I mean, we're totally wide open. We have plans that, you know, you can take over the solar after 5 years with a buyout, and then it's your responsibility, but you reap the benefits of that. So we look at just what's best for you, what makes the most sense for you. We're not trying to push any single thing on you. We just want to be a source for information and actual financial information. You could say, okay, does this make sense for me if I'm paying 10 cents a kilowatt hour now, and I'm coming telling you, wow, we're going to give you this and it's going to cost you 15 cents. It's probably not going to be good. So we just want to help you take a look at it, consider it, especially on the larger projects, because that's more in our wheelhouse. We're more set up for that, but we're willing to help and listen to anybody that has any questions or projects or situations they want to look at or consider.
John, I have a quick question. Can
Yeah.
you explain what you meant about the 2 mile thing? Because I didn't follow
Yeah,
that.
so I'm sorry, I kind of glossed over that. It's this came up and we had a presentation with some people with these warehouses. I kind of touched on that. They were looking at, if we put something on a warehouse and we were able to like take care of other buildings close to that, and they were able to draw off that same solar array, as long as they're within 2 miles. Like if you were a farmer, or if you were a landowner, had a big plot of land, whatever, and you wanted to put solar on, and you didn't have a big enough load to justify that, so you're using way less than you produced, you can have off takers within 2 miles of your array, and that's like property end to property end. But it does give people options if they have you know, whether it's space on a roof or space in a field or whatever, to potentially make money or, you know, produce income from that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I just didn't follow that at the initial. But
Yeah, I know. I kind of glossed over it because I was it's like, it's hard to tell if this is like, am I past it? I mean, is this too much to consider if you're looking at a single home up to, I mean, we're looking at multiple sites in a university or, you know, a landfill of decent size. So I don't want it to be, you know, there's a lot in between there. So
I also like the idea that, and we'll come back to it later, about the potential for microgrid. Because like in my borough in particular, I'm always interested in, if we have, I think 6 or 7 buildings now, all of which have potentially suitable roofs that could have solar arrays on them, but no one is very large. But if we did it on all of them, that would actually produce quite a lot of energy, and quite a lot more than the amount of energy that all of those buildings combined have as a load. So we could actually produce energy for, I'm always thinking about low income housing
mhm.
in our borough, so that we could reduce the energy cost of the lowest income houses in our community. But the only way that I can imagine doing that is by having sufficient roof square footage to be able to create such a large array. But I think your model, by like amalgamating multiple arrays on different buildings within a geographic, because it's only like a couple square miles is the entire
Right.
borough,
And
that it could easily.
if it's the same customer, like at Kent State University, I mean, it doesn't, I think well, that's Ohio's different rules, but I don't know if that's really the 2 miles holds. I think you may be able to spread that out. So like if it was your borough or town, or like we're looking at the city of Ann Arbor, we're doing work up there, and I mean, they have similar, you know, a wastewater plant, they have an airport, and they're all spread out, but they're all, you know, one's bigger than the other, one's a little building, but you know, when you look at it from what you're saying, and potentially you produce more that you could sell off or get off takers, make available to your to residents. I mean, it's all good stuff.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. So I think Greg Winks from Soulbridge is up next. Greg, are you also doing a PowerPoint?
I am, yes.
Okay. John, I think you might need to end yours.
Did I? I think I did.
There you go. Perfect.
All right, do we see mine now?
Yes.
Okay. I'll share the whole screen there. Okay. I'll give you a little bit of background first on myself, Soulbridge Energy Advisors, how we work in the marketplace, and then I'll kind of focus. I know Joy and John have gone over some good information here, so I'll just kind of skim through some of the similar stuff. Soulbridge Energy Advisors is an independent consulting and solar brokerage firm. We're located here in Western Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh. However, we do work with throughout the state of Pennsylvania. We've changed the paradigm in the sense that we do not represent a solar installation company or a manufacturer, any one entity. We represent the consumer in the marketplace, whether that be a homeowner, a business owner, a church, a municipality. We represent them in the process of going solar, and it starts from the ground zero. David, you were talking about how to, you don't really have a real grasp of the whole process involved in going solar. And we start at the grassroots level, understanding the goals and objectives, doing a technical assessment of your property. Is it feasible for putting solar on the rooftop? And analyzing your electric bills, understanding your consumption patterns, understanding your electricity rates, doing, running all the financial modeling to make sure that you're fully educated on where you stand now, what your prospects are for going solar. And then, what's the prospects of actually making the investments? What's the return on your investments and paybacks? And then we put on a brokerage hat, put the role a little bit where we're more of a project broker. If you typically Google, at least in Western Pennsylvania, I think Eastern Pennsylvania, you have more of a choice as far as solar installation companies. But in Western Pennsylvania, if you Google, you're not going to come up with a whole lot of choices. But our role is to network, expand the opportunities in the marketplace, open up the marketplace for people that are going solar, and create an RFP for your project and get competitive bidding. The competitive bidding, the first thing that comes into mind is, well, it's a great way to lower costs, but it's also a great way to encourage creative system design. For some projects are pretty straightforward. Some projects can allow for the creativity that certain companies just over time have created their niche of expertise. So, we bring the broad exposure of what the market can offer to the client. Ultimately, along the way, it's all based on education to where they're comfortable in making the decisions and moving forward in each step of the way. Real quickly, I just wanted to share, I know everyone here is interested and intrigued about solar. I wanted to share just some of the state of where we are right now with solar. Not going to dwell on a lot of this, other than the fact that, in the nation right now, we have enough power enough solar that's installed to power almost 19 million homes, 3 million installations. In Pennsylvania, we're approaching enough solar capacity right now that could power upwards of 100,000 homes and pushing 40,000 installations. And all that data was based on the first 2 quarters of this year. So I would imagine that we're over 40,000 installations in the state of Pennsylvania. The bottom line that I wanted to point out, and this is a little bit dated, this is from the 2019 IPL survey on the churches throughout the country and in the state of Pennsylvania that have gone solar. I'm not sure if there's any more current data, but as of 2 years ago, there were 770 churches in the country and 10 in the state of Pennsylvania. And this is a list of the churches that have gone solar based on that survey. The one that I will point out about 2/3 of the way down is St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Pittsburgh. We came on board with them a little bit after they had already gotten started with their whole process. They had done a tremendous valuation on what their responsibilities are, moral and environmental responsibilities as stewards of the earth and the community. So they had already made commitments towards energy efficiency, clean energy if it's possible, and went on a substantial capital fundraising drive within the church. They had already made commitments how they were going to finance their project, and it was financed totally cash. The best strategy probably would have been to incorporate some sort of methodology to capture the tax credits. They chose not to. They just chose to move forward. But I still give them a tremendous amount of credit for their initiative, the congregational support to see something happen. And as it turned out, they had a 19 kilowatt system that was installed about a year and a half ago now, and it was kind of a neat flip the switch type of event. They had the Episcopalian bishop in the Pittsburgh area come and actually get on the roof and bless the panels. So it was kind of a fun event to be part of. But we guided, I just wanted to say we did guide St. Paul's through the process of running the numbers. So they had a clear understanding of where they were going to go with their expenditure. And then we did craft that RFP. And out of a dozen or so, I forget the exact number of companies we sent the RFP to, we had 5 responses back, went through all the nuances of each response and each proposal, and they were comfortable in their choice. And so far, it's worked out well. One thing that I do want to stress here, St. Paul's started to do it, and I stress this to anyone, whether it's a church, business, homeowner. There's a lot of value in investing into energy efficiency before you even do anything related to solar. Simple things is changing out older light bulbs, those incandescent light bulbs, and replacing them with LEDs. If you have the resources, replacing windows, upgrading your HVAC systems, replacing older appliances with energy efficient models. And the one thing to keep in mind for homeowners is, you replace that old inefficient refrigerator that's been in your kitchen for 20 years with a brand new one, and you're excited. It's all Energy Star, everything. But you take the one that you had in your kitchen and you put it in the basement or the garage as an extra storage space, and you really haven't gotten rid of that energy hog at all. It's still there in your house. Just be aware of the things that you do in how you're managing your energy consumption. The less you consume by energy efficiency, it might translate in that you won't have to invest as much into a solar array, or whatever you do invest into a solar array is now offsetting a greater percentage of that monthly utility bill than what it was prior to any energy efficiency initiative. Roy went through quite a bit of on the solar financing. I'm going to kind of go through this a little bit, but not dwell on it too much. Various options, strategies. Hey, cash is king. It always, it always rules. Variety of congregational ways. Joy went through several. Solar co-op, a single entity PPA, whatever is necessary. St. Paul's did a fundraising campaign for cash. There are loans that are out there, whether it's through a banking entity that you work with already or credit union. Those are usually better terms. There are solar financing entities that offer solar loans. They tend to be very expensive, filled with a lot of upfront points. So it's maybe something that I might not be a big fan of. Something that is really just coming to market in the last year or so is commercial property assess. Oh, geez, help me out here. If anyone else knows this, CPACE.
Clean energy.
Pardon me?
Property assessed clean energy.
Property assessed clean energy. Is that right? Well, I was on the right track. Thank you, Henry and Jack. It's you work through certified lenders. It's a state supported program, counties supported program, local municipality supported program. All of your real estate tax entities have to be on board with this. But what it is you're basically using your real estate property tax as a means of securing, providing a strong security for lenders to lend out money. Some churches might be in a tax exempt state, but you can set up a special tax, a real estate tax entity here to take advantage of this. It's really new in the marketplace. I think it's been utilized a little bit more in the eastern half of the state than it has out in the western half. But that is, it's an option. Can't say from my knowledge that this program offers any more favorable interest rate terms. It's just it's a stronger way to securitize the loan opportunity, the lending opportunity. Some additional solar financing options is a lease, a flat out lease, a flat monthly payment for the solar system. Third party fronts the money. It's not something that's utilized a whole lot in the mid-Atlantic or Northeast, where your solar system is not as productive in the wintertime as it is in spring, summer, early fall. When you have a flat monthly payment, while the whole annual financial picture should align that you're getting ahead even with the lease payment compared to what you were paying on your electricity bill, people get discouraged for those 3, 4, 5 months that they're actually paying a lot more in a lease payment than what they would have been paying on an electric bill. So they can be upside down a little bit for a few months, and that's discouraging. Joy and John talked a lot about the power purchase agreement. The difference there is that you're paying for the energy that's produced. So you're paying what you pay for the energy on the third party financing here mirrors what your consumption is from the solar array. It's not flat from month to month. It mirrors what the weather conditions are, the seasonal conditions. So it is the one that's preferred in this area. Great way to capture those tax credits and depreciation on commercial properties, and from third party for churches. If you use a third party investor, it's a great way for those investors to capture the tax credits, pass those benefits on in project savings to a church congregation. When you have the opportunities, if there are government grants or some sort of funding that could be denomination specific that's out there. And one other area that I talk about, not available in Pennsylvania right now. I know Henry's very involved in trying to, with lobbying to push for community solar. It would solve a lot of issues for churches if we had the ability. Community solar basically allows for multiple investors into multiple ownership, I should say, into one solar array. Currently, state law in Pennsylvania only allows one ownership of a solar array. And that's the theory behind the clean energy co-op. The co-op is one owner. You're investing into the co-op itself. But with community solar, there could be individual churches can invest into an ownership share of a solar array that could be out in the farmlands away from where your church is. And that church, or it could be an individual, a homeowner, or it could be a business owner. You get a credit on your monthly electric bills commensurate to the amount that you've invested into that solar farm and the production from that solar farm for that month. Hopefully, we'll get some sort of legislation passed that allows and opens up that opportunity. And last, what I'll go over is, the process of selecting your contractor. We've talked about financing, we've talked about the marketplace, and this is an area where we at Soulbridge really work to help make sure you're comfortable with, but you have to look at the experience level of a contractor. You have to look at the certifications that they display and that they've earned, gone through training, and how knowledgeable they are and how many people within their team have certifications. Proximity to a project is good to have when it comes to warranty programs, maintenance of your system ongoing over time. It's good to have a brick and mortar office nearby that if you do have a system maintenance issue, even though warranty programs for major components, I think Joy said it earlier, running 25 years, you still have to have someone help deal with those if there's a bad solar panel or a bad inverter. You want to have particular attention paid towards contractors and their size and efficiency of system designs, that they're taking the time in their engineering department to really to work on your behalf on that. A lot of people just kind of let that slide, and a lot of people, this is an area where we really provide a lot of value. A lot of people don't understand the efficiency of a system design. Warranties, guarantees, they do vary from installation company to installation company. So you need to understand the differences there. And yes, cost is a factor, but what I've just illustrated before, these all have as much of a play as cost when you're considering going solar. So that's it. Hope I haven't taken up more than my share of time, but just wanted to give some good information there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Greg. I definitely, for each of you, I have questions that I want to circle back to, but I would like to turn it over to Henry Mckay to bring us home.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, David, for having me here. So there's been a lot of good information already, so I can skip over a lot of things that have already been said and focus a little bit on what makes Solar United Neighbors unique. And I will pull up my slides in just a second here. Okay. All right. So I'm the Pennsylvania Program Director of Solar United Neighbors. We're a national nonprofit organization. I am based here in Pittsburgh. I run our Pennsylvania program and oversee our work in a few other states nearby. And our role is we're a consumer-oriented, vendor-neutral organization dedicated to helping people go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights. So we provide a lot of guidance and education to people to help them through the process of going solar, including this model called the Solar Co-op, which Joy mentioned, and I can explain a little bit more in detail. But we also organize solar supporters, especially the people who go through our solar co-ops, for policy advocacy. So we are trying to build a movement of solar supporters to make it easier for more people to go solar and to build a cleaner and fairer energy system. And I just want to share this map of solar installations by state, just to make a point about policy. And you'll see some obvious things here, like California has a lot of solar. Sunny states like Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Florida have a lot of solar. But you also notice cold, cloudy, wintry places like, Massachusetts, New York State, Minnesota also have a lot of solar. So really now it's the climate is less important. The amount of sunshine you're getting is less important because the technology is so powerful now. What's more important now is the policy environment. Are the right policies in place in that state to make solar an economical option to create the conditions for a strong solar market? And so that's why we focus a lot on policy, because we know that if you get the policy right in a state, you can have a lot of people benefiting from solar energy. So a lot of this was covered by Joy excellently, so I can skip over this. I can just share my tips for going solar. Get at least 3 quotes, get companies to compete for your business. Try to avoid solar ads you see on Facebook. There's a lot of, especially since the pandemic began, there's a lot of lead aggregation companies out there who make questionable claims about solar, or they talk about the existence of government programs that don't really exist. So I would avoid Facebook ads and try to find some companies, hopefully ones in your area, who do solar, and compare their bids. Convert those prices to dollars per watt. So when they say, we'll do 10 kilowatts on your house and here's what you'll charge, someone else might say, we'll do 8 kilowatts. Someone else might say, we'll do 10.5. Convert them to dollars per watt so you can compare apples to apples when you're trying to see who's the most expensive. Understand the ownership model being offered. Are they expecting you to pay cash? Are they offering some kind of financing tool to help you pay for your solar? Or is it some kind of third-party ownership model, like a power purchase agreement or lease, which we talked about a lot tonight already? And then also, if you're in an eligible area, and we have one open, join a solar co-op. Now, we have a lot of resources for going solar on our website. If you go to solarunitedneighbors.org/go-solar, it has information about our solar co-ops, and then a lot of guidance we offer to individuals anywhere in the country who want to go solar, including we can get on the phone with you, help talk you through proposals you've gotten from solar companies, and make an informed decision about going solar. Now, our solar co-ops, the idea is going solar that is, while it's cheaper than it used to be, it's still pretty expensive. And while it's easier than it used to be, it still can be pretty intimidating if you're not a solar energy expert. So we run these programs to help people through the process of going solar, make it easier and more affordable. We'll take a geographic area. Right now, the only one we have open in Pennsylvania is the Center County Solar and EV Charger Co-op. So for example, if you live in Center County and you own your property, you can join the solar co-op for free, and it gives you access to technical assistance from us throughout the process of going solar. But also, we're building this huge group of people along with you who want to go solar, and we run a competitive bidding process to get solar installation companies to compete to offer everybody in the co-op a group rate. So by aggregating customers like this, you can lower the price of an installation a little bit, and everybody can enjoy a more affordable solar installation. And then they're getting technical guidance from us along the way. And then, of course, you become part of this solar movement that we're coordinating, and we help you stay up to date on policy changes and how you can help make Pennsylvania a better state for solar. We also have some partnerships with a couple credit unions who offer some pretty competitive loans for solar, the Clean Energy Credit Union and the Community First Credit Union. If you're a member of Solar United Neighbors, you can access, and I see Jack nodding, so maybe this is something the Clean Energy Co-op does too. If you're a member of Solar United Neighbors, one of our co-ops, you also get access to this credit union financing. And advantage of credit union financing is often the fees are much lower than you'd see on other types of loans, on commercial loans. I just want to show you this real quick here. So this is our website. We have a lot of solar policy information here, and we have a lot of guidance on going solar. We have a Go Solar guide. We have information about our solar co-ops. We've done about 300 of these around the country, not just in Pennsylvania. And then we have a lot of resources to help you go solar individually. And then, of course, we have a lot of information about solar policy at the state and federal level. And one thing I want to highlight that was mentioned in Pennsylvania, or two things. So our solar renewable energy credits in Pennsylvania, these SRECs, which is an additional revenue stream if you have solar, are pretty low value, especially compared to a lot of our neighboring states. And that is purely a function of policy choices we made in Pennsylvania. We have very unambitious goals for how much energy we're requiring our utilities to get from solar. And as a result, there's low demand for buying SRECs, which means if you're generating extra SRECs with your solar installation, they sell for very low prices. So we are working to pass an update to the Pennsylvania's Alternative Energy Portfolio Standard, the AEPS. This is the law that sets our alternative energy goals and directly drives the value of a Pennsylvania SREC. Just to put this in perspective, I think they're around $40 now in Pennsylvania. DC, which still has the strongest SREC market in the country because they have very strong renewable energy goals, it's more like $400 SRECs. And that means your payback period for going solar in DC is like 2 to 4 years compared to like 10 plus years here in Pennsylvania. So that policy really does make a difference. And then also, we talked about community solar. So, where you have one large offsite solar array that is subscribed to or shared ownership by lots of different energy users located in other places. This, we're also working to pass in Pennsylvania. You need to pass enabling legislation to make it happen. It's one of these unique energy policies in Pennsylvania that brings together rural and urban voters. Urban voters tend to be the people who would benefit the most by subscribing to it because you have a lot of renters who don't own their home and can't go solar, so they could subscribe to community solar. And then the arrays tend to be sited in rural areas, and they provide really reliable and pretty lucrative revenue to farmers and other rural landowners. So it's probably one of the biggest solar policy things we could reasonably achieve in a state like Pennsylvania, community solar. And we even just hit this interesting point where a couple Pennsylvania utilities who tend not to be the biggest fans of solar that they don't have control over said they support community solar in Pennsylvania. So this is achievable, and it's important to talk to your legislators about community solar if it's something that you support. And I can stop right there so we have more time for questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Henry. So I don't want to necessarily overly dominate the questions, though I do have quite a lot myself. Is there anyone that's on still who would like to have one of their burning questions from this now very jam-packed thread have their question addressed? I know some of them were actually being answered kind of in real time by those others that were on the call, but
I'm curious about the church in Pittsburgh. So they went all cash and didn't go with it because it's a nonprofit. They didn't have any reason to benefit from the 30%, but all the people that contributed must have gotten 100% of a tax donation to the church, right?
Well, I don't know what the individual donation arrangements were. That was done prior to we were brought on board. I would think that they received probably similar as just any other charitable, nonprofit donation or deduction that they would have on their tax returns. The church had so much momentum going at that by the time we came on board that they just wanted to keep moving forward with the strategy that they had in place and anticipating just buying it with cash. I think Joy brought it up early when she was explaining, the definitions of PPAs. They can be complicated. There's a lot of, there's tax benefits, certainly, that can be gained. It can be complicated and a lot of legalese and just it's the church at St. Paul's just wanted to kind of keep moving forward in a clean transaction. A rarity though.
Greg, to clarify for Betsy, you might want to distinguish between the tax benefit of a charitable contribution versus an actual tax credit. That with
Yeah.
the PPA and investors, it's a tax credit, so it's dollar for dollar off your taxes, whereas a deduction is going to reduce your income, but it doesn't reduce your taxes dollar for dollar.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The tax credit in Pennsylvania is the biggest financial incentive that exists right now for what you just explained. Whether it's an individual or a business, you're able to apply that dollar for dollar for any federal taxes that you have paid or will owe in your upcoming returns.
Greg, can you explain that a little bit more? So like if I invested $10,000, I would get $10,000 in theory off of taxes?
So let's look at this. Take that $10,000. Say your system costs $10,000. The federal investment tax credit right now is at 26%. So you would have a $2,600 tax credit available for you to apply on federal taxes. Now, if for whatever reason you only we're going to have a $2,000 federal tax obligation for this year, and you had $600 left over, you can roll that over and use the remaining balance for the next year's taxes.
Great, thank you for
And
clarifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that is actually something misunderstood that both of you and Bill were referring to, because I think people, as Betsy referred to, like the standard deductions and things that we can make have very little impact on my taxes, at least. You know, like I do give charitably, but the extent to which it's actually going to reduce my tax burden is very minimal. But I think that, as Greg just suggested, an investment like that at 26% of whatever I'm putting in would actually have a significant change to what I would be paying. And also I get to invest in something that I could potentially make money off of, either through the SREX or the appreciation of the property value or any number of other things. I will also say that we just had a solar tour at the church in Pittsburgh, but we also did another solar tour at a Christ Covenant in Harleysville outside of Philadelphia. And the way they did it was a capital campaign where they put out, I want to say it was something like $250,000 for a very large ground array that essentially covers all of their electricity for their significantly large congregation building and hall, and then also the I can't remember the name of the word, the house where the pastor and his wife were both pastors, where they live. And so they have essentially zero cost for electricity for 30 years. But the array, they said, is a lease. So they put out $250 for, I think, a $400,000 array, but after 20 years, they have sole ownership of it. So they get 10 years of all of the money, all of it's going to them, and they essentially make double what they put into it. So they will, for their own purposes, be able to every year invest the $18,000 that they would have been spending in electricity towards other things that they want to do, like feeding the homeless or a women's shelter or all of these other positive endeavors that the congregation wanted to do as well. They're able to do that vis-a-vis the money that they save. But again, a capital campaign where they have to raise $250,000 is not always the most viable thing for every congregation, and we understand that. But I think
they still used a third party entity for the lease.
Yes.
Who were able to capture the tax incentives, and in their number crunching, were able to pass on, I would imagine, a certain degree of the lower cost to the church. I mean, between the tax credit and accelerated depreciation, a third-party investor could recover roughly ballpark 50% of their cash outlay, capital outlay in year one. So that's a pretty powerful tool.
Yeah. Can you explain the accelerated depreciation a little bit more?
Well, traditional makers accounting system, depreciation system allows you, there was a schedule that you can write off as a depreciation of your asset over, I think it's 6 years. And it's a deduction, not a tax credit. But with the new law that came into play in 2019, that they allowed for the acceleration now of, instead of scheduling that depreciation out over 6 years, they can claim it all in year one, 100% depreciation in year one. Wow. As their deduction off of their tax returns. That's a powerful combination, accelerated depreciation and the tax credit. Yeah.
I know there's a bunch of other questions that I'm trying to grab from the chat as well. The one I wanted to ask for John was the size of the arrays that you're talking about, like the buildings that you were showing in your presentation seemed like they were large structures, like warehouses and things like that, right. But they weren't as big as I imagined by the number that you were referring to. Right. So like a municipal building or a warehouse could hold the array that you're talking about.
Right. Let me see if I...
Because when you said what it was a large number, I was imagining like a farm, like a 100-acre right. farm.
Well, that landfill was like 4 megawatts. I'm just looking to see what these smaller ones say. So like City of Lakewood, it was 650 kW on a building. The one, I'd pull this in for you, but I'd probably screw it up. And then the campus at Kent, there were 6 buildings. It was 3.4 megawatts total. So I mean, some of those buildings are, I mean, they're decent size. Maybe they're 300-400 kW.
Yeah,
like that. I mean, it's. And someone else asked a question inside there too. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on these roofs. You know what I mean? It's not like the roof has to be good, and then you gotta, there's a lot of equipment in these places that, it's not all usable too. So it's all, but yeah, in roughly scale, you get an idea. That's why I had those pictures in there, but I didn't.
Yeah. And what's the lifetime on the batteries that you're referring to for the microgrids? Do they have a shorter life?
I think the batteries are like 10 years. Okay. So what happens when you do a whole big like say you did a full scale batteries, solar, that would all be built into the package. So if the batteries after 10 years would be replaced, you wouldn't pay for that. I mean, that's built into the financial model.
I got it.
And I think inverters are the same way. I don't think their lifetime is as long as the solar. I might be wrong, but.
John, can I ask a question? Are you seeing organizations now install the batteries and forego having a generator? Or no, because that would require them to be off grid. Never mind.
Well, I mean, it depends. It's what's your critical load too. I mean, right? That's the big question with people that have generators. I mean, we're doing a lot of stuff in California, and it's just that they have a program where people just buy. I mean, they're given rebates on batteries because they actually lose power for real. We don't. We kind of do sometimes, but not like that. But yeah, you can use it for that. I mean, it's just everyone seems to have a diesel generator, which if it works, you really don't want to use it anyway, right?
Yeah. Betsy, thank you for reminding me. Parsonage was the word. I honestly have forgotten what it was for like 3 weeks. And as a non-Protestant, I couldn't remember what it was. So Kathy, do you want to say your comment about the Sustainable Energy Fund?
Oh, yeah. The Sustainable Energy Fund, which is located out in the Allentown region, but serves people statewide, offers loans to municipalities, nonprofits, and small businesses up to $100,000, 1% interest rate, 10-year term, no application fee for renewable energy projects. So if you are a church, a diocese of some sort, large organization of congregations, you can apply for this loan. They still have money available. Preston Scheimer from St. Paul's in Mount Lebanon shared with us on our tour that the St. Paul's system, correct me if I'm wrong here, Greg, was 20 kilowatt system, and it was in the $50,000 range. So that would be your average church school building roof, I would guess. And it's a flat roof system, ballasted on the roof, and would be doable for less than this loan is available for. So you might want to look into that. And I posted the link to the revolving loan fund from the SEF in the chat.
Thank you, Kathy. There's so much good content in this chat. Honestly, you guys like overwhelmed it, which is amazing. I'm definitely going to save the chat. I might pull things out as like a Q&A and put it on our website, honestly. Was there any other pressing questions that people had for our speakers before we wrap things up? I know there was one question from Janet earlier on, but she jumped off. But it was basically about like how large of an array would you need for a house that's essentially all electric? But I feel that that's a bit hard because you would need to know the load, you would need to know the energy efficiency, you would need to know quite a lot about the house before you would be able to answer that. I know that there's
David,
some. Yeah, go ahead.
To jump in on that, David, it's that you answered it. It's real hard to give someone a snap judgment. Well, it's going to be this size or this cost. There's so many variables that come into play on virtually every project out there. I know people would like to get a ballpark. From a residential side, yes, you might see that the average residential is maybe 8-9 kilowatts, in size, and it's depending on the marketplace, and the cost could be anywhere from 20. Let's just put a big range in there, $20,000 to $30,000, in there. But it's hard to answer that question. I just wanted also, there was Lisa Jean Hefner asked a question about a second meter for solar in Ephrata, and I'm willing to take a gamble that might have been just a solar production meter. For solar systems, a lot of times utilities might request that you put a separate meter that measures the amount of electricity that your system is actually exporting to the grid. A lot of times that's done with bi-directional meters, but sometimes it's not. Also, it could be that separate solar meter could be what is dedicated for tracking your SREC production.
Yeah, I'm a little bit familiar with that Ephrata example, and I know that they're one of the municipal electric companies in Pennsylvania that does not do net metering, like you would have if you're a customer of an investor-owned utility. And it's something to do. I don't remember exactly what that second meter is doing, but I think they're trying to they want to measure your raw generation, not just how much flows back out into the grid, but how much you're generating, whether or not you're using in your home or exporting. And it has something to do with how they calculate, how they charge you for it. It's unfortunate they don't offer net metering. They kind of buy into the myth that net metering is like everybody else is subsidizing you, when there's no data to really support that. And there is data to support that people with solar are perhaps not even being fairly compensated by net metering. They deserve a little bit more because of all the benefits that distributed solar brings to the grid and to the community.
Could you unpack that a little bit more? Just because I get a lot of questions about net metering, and I don't sufficiently answer them.
Yeah.
Could you just unpack net metering a little bit more and
So-
what the debate is there?
So net metering is this process where you generate, we have it in Pennsylvania, it's how your solar interacts with the grid. You generate more than you need in the summer, and you export that extra energy to utility, and they give you a credit on your bill for every extra kilowatt hour you sent to them. And then in the winter, you're not generating enough energy with your solar, and instead of buying more energy from them, you can spend down that bank of kilowatt hours on your bill. You give them to them in the summer, and you get them back in the winter when you need them. And so it's a way to fairly compensate solar owners for this energy that that they're providing to the grid. And remember that utility, those kilowatt hours you gave them, they're probably going to be selling that at the full retail rate anyway to your neighbors. But what a lot of utilities have said, especially in other states where utility interests have basically killed net metering in the state legislatures, or they've weakened it. Utilities basically can take our ratepayer dollars and then spend them on lobbying, or pay it to their trade association who spends it on lobbying, and then change the rules of the game to make it work better for them. They see rooftop solar as a threat to their business model. Their business model is, I want to sell more energy, and I make a fixed profit for all the energy that I sell, or I want to build more infrastructure so that I can sell more energy, and I earn a profit on that as well. And solar lets you buy less of their product, so it's a threat to their business model. But that doesn't sound good to state legislatures, and that doesn't sound good to the public, saying you're hurting our shareholder profits. So instead they say, oh, rooftop solar is actually, it creates this cost shift where now these solar owners aren't paying us enough. So to maintain the grid, we're going to have to charge everybody else some more. And poor grandma won't be able to keep her lights on. The problem is that is an argument that, while it may intuitively make sense, they really need to show the math and say, here's the costs presented by solar, here's the benefits, and how do they compare with each other. And you can't make those arguments until you do the math. And in other states where people have done the math, they've done what's called a value of solar study. So what are all the different bundles of value that rooftop solar brings to the grid? They often find that either there is no cost shift, especially at very low penetrations when there's not a lot of solar, like we have in Pennsylvania, or it's a very modest one, but things that are more dramatic, impact on your bill size is like, natural gas peaker plants, which are really expensive to run, or things like that. And then some studies have found that solar actually provides more benefits to the grid than the solar owner gets back in net metering. Because not only is it energy, it's avoided transmission costs, it's reduces the demand for energy in the wholesale market, which means the price goes down, which means everybody benefits. And then, of course, it has all these environmental and health benefits too, which aren't reflected in the price. So you often hear this argument, but it's not something, but they need to kind of show the math before we can talk about whether net metering is fair or not in Pennsylvania.
And building on that potentially for the last point that you made about the obviously like environmental and health benefits of it, I feel like that's also then where the SRECs come into play, because if you have a healthy SREC market, then you're also purchasing more of that at a rate that not only compensates fairly the solar energy producers, but also incentivizes energy companies in the purchase of those, and thus creates a market where alternative energy is prioritized, and thus reduces the overall carbon footprint of everything else. And I think that goes back to why I was so interested in John's comment about the microgrid, because my brother-in-law works on microgrids in St. Paul, and he it's a component of, I think, energy production that is very rarely talked about is the distribution of energy production, and then what microgrids can actually do for that in the long term, let alone going back to John's point about when there are energy outages, if there are decentralized components of energy distribution, then you don't have a whole grid go out, you have parts of a grid go out, right? Because you have backup energy in batteries, and you have local production in solar cells that are on your roof, so you don't have to have transmission across lines, which also, this is one of the issues that I sometimes have. I was telling John earlier about these kind of larger predatory solar installation companies that they're wanting to create solar arrays here in Pennsylvania and then ship that energy to New York, thus creating very, very large transmission lines that are not actually serving Pennsylvanians, but rather serving the need in other states. But they're using the land here because it's cheaper. So it's a bit, it's not beneficial necessarily to the people in my local economy, at least. As much as I want more solar, I also don't want to be harming all local people for the benefit of for other people elsewhere. I know
Can
that
I
sounds a
jump
little.
in here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to clarify because the difference between what Henry was talking about with the solar co-op and the clean energy co-op. In addition, in Philadelphia, we have the energy co-op. So there's all different types of things here. And just to clarify how they're different. So the solar co-op that the Solar United Neighbors sets up are for residents to lower their installation costs by group buying. And then, of course, they do all this other great advocacy work. What the Clean Energy Co-op does is we are a development group co-op that develops with our co-op members' investments, solar projects on nonprofits or community businesses. And then to touch on the other clean or the other energy co-op in Philadelphia, they actually provide either electricity as a third, as a alternative energy supplier, or I buy renewable natural gas from them. And also I think they sell oil, I think if that's correct, for their historically. And so just to kind of clarify the different co-op models that are part of it.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think, I mean, the thing that I always take away from any discussion of the financing and the logistics is as Joy showed in the one chart, the varying levels of complexity and financial ease are significant, but at the same time, to Janet's question that we kind of sidestepped after she got off was there is no one size fits all. You know, like there's no one roof that's like the next. There's no one municipality that's like the next. So I think what's good for one is not necessarily good for the other. And I'm very happy that there are many different options. But I think to Henry and other people's points, there's a lot more that we can do on the state legislative level and the federal level to prioritize renewable energy, prioritize solar energy in particular, that doesn't exist currently or could exist in better forms. And one of the meetings that Bill Cousins and I were at for the solar tour, the state representative was really very pro SREC, and that's fantastic. And that is definitely a component of this. And I think it's a combination of all of these things that will help. But getting off of the policy side, I do think that it's good to hear that there are all of these financing options and to know that there are consultants and others that can help advise in this, because, you know, so many times people come to me and say, like, how do I do this? And it's like, well, I can't actually do it for you. Like, I'm not a solar installation company, despite the word power in our title, in our, which, by the way, Kathy was saying earlier when she was making calls, people would hang up because they thought that she was trying to convince them to change their electrical company. But you know, we are more than happy to direct them to our videos, our resources, those of your companies, and to also have you all as partners in this work. So,
David, quick question. You'll have everybody's contact information. So if one of our churches or member churches wants to contact someone to talk about a project,
yes,
they can do that?
I actually have a handful of them that I'll probably direct towards you guys very shortly. That not only will we send out the video of this with the contacts listed with that video, but we'll also send out a copy of it on our newsletter and things like that to make sure that people know that it's out there, that they can watch this video or they can directly contact you. So
Great.
I really appreciate what all of you have said today. And honestly, it's still always hard to grasp all the different possible elements of it, but I think it's because, as I said, you need to kind of like take your angle, like what I need for my roof, what I need, what I'm wanting to invest in. And I think that, you all are a great resource in that way. And I am more than happy to direct people towards you in the future. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Blessings to you all, and I hope to reconnect with all of you very soon.